Hello, welcome to another how to draw video. Today I'm going to be drawing a horse's head. I have done a horse like full body and everything. You can find that on another video, but I did have some requests to draw just the head. So if you want to draw along with me, do so. Alright, so to get started, we're just going to draw the basic shape of the head. We're going to have it drawn as just kind of like very lightly drawing a circle shape like this. Which, by the way, I'm a scribbly drawer. You don't have to draw as many of those. I just have a hard time drawing a circle, so I have to try it a couple times. All right, so, and it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, just a circle-y shape. And then what we're going to do is, this is going to be the cranium, which is this area right here. We're going to modify this a little bit. So the first thing that we see that we need to do is we need to have the muzzle coming out of it. An easy way to do that is go ahead and draw the circle that makes up the tip of the muzzle. So notice that it's a little further out instead of diagonal line. So I'm just going to very lightly draw a diagonal line right here. And then once I get to where I want the end of my nose, then I'm just going to draw kind of like an ovally circle-y shape like this. Not trying to make it too perfect or anything. All right, so once I have big circle line, small circle, I'm going to do a diagonal line from the circle back to the head like this so that I can get the overall shape that I need. All right, so this is a good foundation to start on. We do have to tweak this a lot. Make sure you're drawing very lightly so it's easy to erase, okay? All right, so from here, I see that I need to have, on my eyes, they have this thing called the brow bone that sticks out like this. So on the top of the head right here, in this area where this muzzle meets the head, I'm gonna make this stick out. So to do that, I'm just gonna start here. I'm gonna go out at a diagonal line like this, and then I'm just going to do a curve and go down until it touches the muzzle area. So this is going to create that sharp brow bone. And then I can also see like a little bit of the eye there that I can just fill in a little bit of a black void and give it like an eyelash or something in order to give it that look of the eye. But from this perspective, the eye is not very much visible because their eyes are more on the sides of their head than the front of their head. All right, so now that I have this eyebrow area, I can go ahead and go down to the nose area. They do have another little bump right here for their muzzle. So once I get close to the end of the circle, I'm actually going to curve up just the tiniest of bits, and then I'm going to curve down like this. So that's going to make kind of like the hood that goes around the nostril flare. And then whenever I get down to the bottom of the circle, they have kind of like overhanging lips that then curve up like this. So I'm just going to follow the shape of the mouth on the bottom of that circle right there. And then whenever you get to the end of the circle, you can just end it in a little dot to indicate that's the end of their mouth. Their mouths don't stretch very far, so don't make it too far, otherwise it's gonna look a little creepy. All right, so on the inside right here, we do have the nostril. The nostril is kind of like a big frowny face. It has a little bit of shading underneath it. So starting somewhere in the middle-ish of the circle, I'm just gonna do a big frowny face like this. And then if you want to, you can kind of add a little bit of shading so it makes it look more 3D, or you can just leave it as a frown and that's fine too. All right, now I'm gonna do the bottom muzzle. They have like this nub on the bottom of their chins, which are really cute. So you would start on the mouth. Notice that I'm not starting up here. You don't want to start even with the mouth at the front. You want to go in a little bit. So pretty much directly below the nose. And then I'm just going to make this bump a little bit bigger. Just give a little bit more tension to it. And then whenever I get down to this line, I'm going to go ahead and follow it back. Now, I'm not going to follow it all the way back to the circle because they have very strong muscles on their cheeks. Here you can see this huge cheek muscle right here. So the cranium actually stops up here, sort of on the other side of the head, but this one kind of comes down. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna start on the back of the cranium here. I'm gonna come down with the cheek like this. So I wanna make a bigger cheek muscle in order to make it feel like their heads are a little bit more powerful and strong, okay? All right, now that I have that cheek muscle, I can actually go ahead and get rid of these guidelines on the inside because I no longer need these ones. And I also don't need this one anymore. So now I just have this kind of empty head. All right, now the location of the other eye is very important. So if I look at where I have drawn this eye right here, if I go directly across from it, it's located here. So it's kind of like a diagonal from the nose and across from the eye. So if you want to very lightly draw this, that'll tell you that's the exact location you want to put the eye. So diagonal from those, kind of following parallel with the angle of the muzzle, and then straight across from here. Their eye shapes are just going to be kind of like little frowns like this. They have kind of rounder eyes. So just an elaborate frown face, like they're closing their eye. And then you would do, starting at the corner, you would just kind of like a smile that connects them together. And then I usually like to leave like a little white highlight in their eyes and then just fill in the rest of it. If you want to do more detail, you can definitely do that. Or if you want to add like, they have like really long eyelashes, like males and females have really long eyelashes. But if you want to add some of those details, you can, or you can leave them off. Something you do want to add is you want to add like the eyebrow indent like this, and also add a little bit of a diagonal line just to show off some of those muscles that are around the eye. And I always like to add an extra line here just to show the cheek, because kind of following the cheek line right here. So there's a lot of other muscles that you can add, but that's kind of up to you. And if you don't like the look of that, you can always erase it too. That's just kind of up to you. So if you like them, take them. If you don't like them, then get rid of them. But that's entirely up to you, because this is your drawing and you get to make those decisions. I'm just gonna kind of play around with it and put them in a place that I think they look kind of cool on, which I think this looks pretty neat right here. All right, so now what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and do the ears. So the ears are just gonna be like a big parenthesis with a little bit of a wiggly parenthesis next to it. You wanna make sure that you're making your ears big enough. They should be about the same height as whatever the muzzle is. So I take that measurement and go up. My ears need to go at least this tall. So from the top of the skull, I'm just gonna do a big parenthesis like this, going up until I get to my point. And then in order to get that wonky line, you just do kind of like a little parenthesis this way, and then you switch it and go the opposite way, like this. All right. Now on the inside of the ear, we have this kind of fluffy texture. I like to use the thing I call the Z line. It's kind of like when you're doing like a zigzag line. You want to avoid getting it like, you don't want to cross it and make it scribbly, like that's no good. But you want to do like little curvy M's and curvy V's and kind of space them out. I like to do like the dot dot dash, where you like do a couple lines, a single line, just kind of play around with it until you get a texture that you enjoy. And you're just going to do that kind of in the middle of the ear. Just give it a little bit more fluff or fuzz. And you can play around with that until you're satisfied with how that looks. All right, so before I do the other ear, I'm actually going to go ahead and do the hair first before I do the other ear, because the hair is overlapping the ear. Now, to draw hair and make it look a little bit more accurate, don't draw it as lines, draw it as shapes. So I see that the shape of the hair makes kind of like a big curvy shape here, and then just kind of creates these big shapes that are going around the animal. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start here at the head. I'm going to do like a big curve, get a little wisp up in there. So this looks kind of like an ice cream cone on top of its head. Just work with it. Then it just kind of curves back, and I see that there's more lumps, and more lumps. So that's all I'm going to do for now. I'm going to come back and add texture later. I'm just going to add another lump here, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the ear after this. So I'm going to come back and show you on the hair. The hair is going to be the last step that I do the more details on. Just start with the shapes. Now to draw those lumps, I'm just doing like parenthesis, backwards parenthesis. So just parentheses, backwards parentheses. Makes it really easy to get those curvy lumps in order to get that kind of more rounded shape. All right, so I see that the ear is coming out of the hair, and then it just curves back down into the hair. So I would just kind of, you want it to be above the eyebrow area. Don't let it be too far over, okay? So above this area, I'm just gonna do parenthesis, curve it down until it touches the hair, and then I'm gonna add a little Z line on the inside, just give it some more fluffy texture. All right, so before I do the rest of the mane, I wanna go ahead and do the neck, because otherwise I don't really know where to put the mane at. So the neck here is coming out of the cheekbone, and it kind of makes a somewhat of a curved line, not too curved. So I'm gonna start on the cheekbone. I'm gonna do a big curve like this. And then I can see that it has like its leg muscles coming right here. So I'm just gonna do big curve here and big curve here. And that's all I'm gonna do there. I'm not gonna worry about any more details because it's mostly just focusing on the head, not the body. All right, now on the back of the head, I know that I have hair coming out of this, but I'm gonna go and just draw it as though there is no hair. It makes a big, kind of like a parenthesis or a frown that kind of just goes off into the distance. So starting above the ear, because the head actually just continues from this part, I'm just gonna do a big frown, making sure not to make the neck too skinny, otherwise it's gonna look kind of weird. I'm just gonna do a little diagonal out for the rest of the body. All right, now here comes the fun part. I like to draw the hair as really flowy. So right now the hair is all flowing up. I'm almost out of space on my paper, so I'm actually gonna have my hair flow down. You can have it flow in any direction that you want though, because this is your drawing. So at first I'm gonna have some of them flow backwards, just kind of go with it. So I'm just gonna draw some of these kind of fluffy shapes going in the directions that they're going in. And then I'm gonna do what's called a reversal. I'm just gonna do a frowny face and do the shape going inwards like this. I'm gonna have some of it kind of flow in. Just gonna have more fluffs kind of coming in. And of course, feel free to spice it up, have some of them get more curly or some less curly. and feel free to overlap them so you get more hair. You can even add hair on the other side of the body like it's flowing in the other direction too. Just give it a little bit more fluff. Now once you get done drawing all the shapes that you want for your hair, then you can erase anywhere that is being overlapped so that you don't accidentally have a line where it's not supposed to be before you move on to the final step. All right, last step for hair is I would add smaller textures or smaller lines. So for example, here I have this. I'm just gonna follow this with a few more lines in the same direction that that shape is going in without overlapping too much. If you touch a line, you stop and then you don't continue, okay? So you just keep drawing these lines, following the direction that your hair would be going. And usually that can create a pretty cool hair texture effect without making it look too messy or too sloppy. So here I'm kind of making the hair look like it's folded over. So I did all inside the shape first. Now I'm gonna do it under the shape just to give it a little bit more variety. And you can always add loose hairs too, like little wispies, just by adding more shapes and more lines going off of it until you're pretty satisfied. So this is like this is more of a stylized shape. If you want to do it more realistically, you can. You would just add more wisps coming off of it and adding more textures and stuff, or adding them closer together, or adding highlights and stuff. But for like a very basic shape, you just redraw the lines following the same curves that the shapes that you have drawn made, and it makes for a very easy way to create really nice hair textures. Just remember that if you touch a line, don't cross over it. You don't want to like have a bunch of this going on because this is very messy and sloppy. You want to try to organize your lines so that they're all flowing in a general direction that you want them to go in order to make it look smoother and nicer, okay? All right, so here's a pretty basic one. If you want to be fun, you can always add a unicorn horn too, because this totally looks like a unicorn. So I'd add like, I don't know, unicorn. You do not have to do this, by the way. I just thought this would be fun because it looks very frilly like a unicorn. Which, oh, by the way, if you want to have like straight hair, you can make this straighter. You don't have to add as many curves as what I'm doing. Horses come in a bunch of different hair types. All right, so once I'm done with this part, then I can add shading if I want to. So I would add a little bit of shading, probably like underneath the head, just to give it to where it's separated from the neck area. And then a little bit of shading around the eyebrow areas, just to make the head seem a little bit more three-dimensional, like this. Maybe a little bit on the bottom chin as well, inside the ears, and then maybe a little bit on the hair where the hair is being overlapped by other chunks and other sections, just like this. All right, so like, once again, you don't have to shade it. I just love to shade. Shading is one of my favorite parts. It's like a reward when you get to the end of your drawing, and it's pretty fun. All right, so there is a very basic accidentally turned unicorn horse thing that you can do for just sketching fun. All right, well, I hope that it was helpful, and thanks for drawing with me.